ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। जय जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंदा, जय अद्वैत चंद्र जय गौर भक्त वृंदा। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी इति नामिने। Continuing reading Adi Lila, chapter 1. The previous video finished up till verse 45. We're continuing from verse 46. Acharyam mam vijaniyan nava manyeta karhichit namartya buddhaya suyeta sarvadeva mayo guru. Translation: one should know the Acharya as myself and never disrespect him in any way. One should not envy him, thinking him an ordinary man, for he is the representative of all demigods. Who's saying this? Krishna is saying this. This is a verse from purport. This is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, chapter 17, verse 27, spoken by Lord Krishna when he was questioned by Uddhav regarding the four social and spiritual orders of society. The Lord was specifically instructing how a brahmachari should behave under the care of a spiritual master. A spiritual master is not an enjoyer of facilities offered by his disciples. He is like a parent. Without the attentive service of his parents, a child cannot grow to manhood. Similarly, without the care of the spiritual master, one cannot rise to the plane of transcendental service. The spiritual master is also called Acharya, or a transcendental professor of spiritual science. The Manu Samhita 2.140 explains the duties of an Acharya, describing that a bona fide spiritual master accepts charge of disciples, teaches them the Vedic knowledge with all its intricacies, and gives them their second birth. Dvija. The ceremony performed to initiate a disciple into the study of spiritual science is called Upaniti, or the function that brings one nearer to the spiritual master. One who cannot be brought near the spiritual master cannot have a sacred thread, and thus he is indicated to be a Shudra. The sacred thread on the body of a Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishya is a symbol of initiation by the spiritual master. It is worth noting, it is worth nothing if worn merely to boast of high parentage. The duty of spiritual master is to initiate a disciple with the sacred thread ceremony. And after this samskar or purificatory process, the spiritual master actually begins to teach the disciple about the Vedas. A person born a Shudra is not barred from such spiritual initiation, provided he is approved by the spiritual master, who is duly authorized to award a disciple the right to be a Brahmana if he finds him perfectly qualified. In the Vayu Puran, an Acharya is defined as one who knows the import of all the Vedic literatures, abides by their rules and regulations, and teaches his disciples to act in the same way. Only out of his immense compassion does the personality of Godhead reveals himself as the spiritual master. Therefore, in the dealings of an Acharya, there are no activities but those of transcendental loving service to the Lord. He is the supreme personality of Servitor Godhead. It is worthwhile to take shelter of such a steady devotee who is called Ashraya Vigraha, or the manifestation or form of the Lord, of whom one must take shelter. If one poses himself as an Acharya but does not have an attitude of servitorship to the Lord, he must be considered an offender, and this offensive attitude disqualifies him from being an Acharya. The bona fide spiritual master always engages in unalloyed devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By this test, he is known to be a direct manifestation of the Lord and a genuine representative of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Such a spiritual master is known as Acharya Dev. Influenced by an envious temperament and dissatisfied because of an attitude of sense gratification, mundaners criticize a real Acharya. In fact, however, a bona fide acharya is non different from the personality of Godhead, and therefore, to envy such an acharya is to envy the personality of Godhead himself. This will produce an effect subversive of transcendental realization. As mentioned previously, a disciple should always respect the spiritual master as the manifestation of Sri Krishna, but at the same time, one should always remember that a spiritual master is never authorized to imitate the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. False spiritual masters pose themselves as identical with Sri Krishna in every respect to exploit the sentiments of their disciples. But such impersonalists can only mislead their disciples, for their ultimate aim is to become one with the Lord. This is against the principles of the devotional cult. The real Vedic philosophy is Achintya Bheda Bhed Tattva, which establishes everything to be simultaneously one with and different from personality of Godhead. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami confirms that this is the real position of a bona fide spiritual master and says that one should always think of the spiritual master in terms of his intimate relationship with Mukunda, Sri Krishna. Srila Jeev Goswami, in his Bhakti Sandarbh 213, has clearly explained that a pure devotee's observation of the spiritual master and Lord Shiva as being one with the personality of Godhead exists in terms of their being very dear to the Lord, not identical with him in all respects. Following in the footsteps of Srila Raghunath Das Goswami and Jeev Goswami, later acharyas like Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur have confirmed the same truths. In his prayer to the spiritual master, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur confirms that all the revealed scriptures accept the spiritual master to be identical with the personality of Godhead because he is very dear and confidential servant of the Lord. Gaudiya Vaishnavas, therefore, worship Srila Gurudev, the spiritual master, in the light of his being the servitor of the personality of Godhead. In all the ancient literatures of devotional service and in the more recent songs of Srila Narottam Das Thakur, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and other unalloyed Vaishnavas, the spiritual master is always considered either one of the confidential associates of Srimati Radharani or a manifested representation of Srila Nityananda Prabhu. Text 47. शिक्षा गुरु के ता आ जानी कृष्णेरा स्वरूप अंतर्यामी भक्त श्रेष्ठा ए दुई रूपा शिक्षा गुरु के ता जानी कृष्ण शिक्षा गुरु के ता जानी कृष्ण रे स्वरूपा शिक्षा गुरु के ता जानी कृष्ण रे स्वरूपा अंतर्यामी भक्त श्रेष्ठ ए दुई रूपा शिक्षा गुरु के ता जानी कृष्ण रा स्वरूपा अंतर्यामी भक्त श्रेष्ठा ए दुई रूपा शिक्षा गुरु के ता आ जानी कृष्ण ने रा स्वरूपा अंतर्यामी भक्त श्रेष्ठा ए दुई रूपा शिक्षा गुरु के ता जानी कृष्ण ने रा स्वरूपा अंतर्यामी भक्त श्रेष्ठा ए दुई रूपा. One should know the instructing spiritual master to be the personality of Krishna. Lord Krishna manifests himself as the super soul and as the greatest devotee of the Lord. Purport. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami states that the instructing spiritual master is a bona fide representative of Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna himself teaches us that as the instructing spiritual master from within and without. From within, he teaches us as Paramatma, our constant companion, and from without, he teaches from the Bhagavad Gita as the instructing spiritual master. There are two kinds of instructing spiritual master. One is the liberated person, fully absorbed in meditation or devotional service, and the other is he who invokes the disciples' spiritual consciousness by means of relevant instructions. Thus, the instructions in the science of devotion are differentiated in terms of the objective and subjective ways of understanding. The Acharya, in the true sense of the term, who is authorized to deliver Krishna, enriches the disciple with full spiritual knowledge and thus awakens him to the activities of devotional service. When by learning from the self-realized spiritual master, one actually engages himself in the service of the Lord Vishnu, functional devotional service begins. The procedure of this devotional service are known as abhideya, or actions one is duty-bound to perform. Our only shelter is the Supreme Lord, and one who teaches how to approach Krishna is the functioning form of Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is no difference between the shelter giving Supreme Lord and the initiating and instructing spiritual master. If one foolishly discriminates between them, he commits an offense in the discharge of devotional service. Srila Sanatan Goswami is the ideal spiritual master, for he delivers one the shelter of the lotus feet of Madan Mohan. Even though one may be unable to travel on the field of Vrindavan due to forgetfulness of his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he can get an adequate opportunity to stay in Vrindavan and derive all spiritual benefits by the mercy of Sanatan Goswami. Srila Govinda Ji acts exactly like the Shiksha Guru, instructing spiritual master by teaching Arjuna the Bhagavad Gita. He is the original preceptor, for he gives us the instructions and an opportunity to serve him. The initiating spiritual master is a personal manifestation of Srila Madan Mohan Vigraha, whereas the instructing spiritual master is a personal representative of Srila Govinda Deva Vigraha. Both of these are worshipped at Vrindavan. Srila Gopinath is the ultimate attraction in spiritual realization. Text 48. नैवोपयन्त्य अपचितिमकव्यत् कवयस्तवेषा ब्रह्मायुषापि कृतमृद्धमूढा स्मरन्ता योऽनन्तबाहितनुभृतमशोभं विदुन्वम् आचार्य चैत्य वपुषा स्वगतिं व्यनक्ति. Translation. O my Lord, transcendental poets and experts in spiritual science could not fully express their indebtedness to you, even if they were endowed with the prolonged lifetime of Brahma. For you appear in two features, externally as Acharya and internally as the Supersoul, to deliver to deliver the embodied living being by directing him how to come to you. Purport. This verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 29, verse 6 was spoken by Sri Uddhav after he heard from Krishna all necessary instructions about yoga. Tesham satata yuktanam bharatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupayanti te. Translation. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Purport. This verse of the Bhagavad Gita 10.10 clearly states how Govinda Dev instructs his bona fide devotee. The Lord declares that by enlightenment in the theistic knowledge, he awards attachment for him to those who constantly engage in his transcendental loving service. This awakening of divine consciousness enthralls a devotee who thus relishes his eternal transcendental mellow. Such an awakening is awarded only to those convinced by devotional service about the transcendental nature or personality of Godhead. They know that the supreme truth, the all spiritual and all powerful person, is one without a second and has fully transcendental senses. He is the fountainhead of all emanations. Such pure devotees always merged in knowledge of Krishna and absorbed in Krishna consciousness, exchange thoughts and realizations as great scientists exchange their views and discuss the results of their research in scientific academies. Such exchanges of thoughts in regard to Krishna give pleasure to the Lord, who therefore favors such devotees with all enlightenment. The previous verse is very important. In this verse, it has been explained that there are two personalities. One is Shri Radha Madan Mohan. Shri Radha Madan Mohan acts exactly like initiating spiritual master. The initiating spiritual master is Diksha Guru, is a personal manifestation of Srila Madan Mohan Vigraha. When one surrenders to Shri Madan Mohan and to the initiating spiritual master, there is no difference, and it brings one close to Madan Mohan, because of which they lose all taste in this material world. This is the perfection of understanding of Sambandha Gyan. Whereas the instructing spiritual master is a personal representative of Srila Govinda Dev Ji. When following his instructions, one can continue on his path of devotional service to reach the epitome of devotional service in its purity, which is the pure devotional service, and which is the perfection of the Abhideya. So, Sambandha deities initiating spiritual master, Abhideya deities instructing spiritual master. There's no difference. Both these deities are worshipped at Vrindavan. Srila Gopinath is the ultimate attraction in spiritual realization, which has which has not been elaborated in verse 47. But then we saw Uddhav's statement from Canto 11, and then the Bhagavad Gita's chapter 10.10, which is a part of Chatushloki Bhagavad Gita. So with that, we move on to Shloka 50th. Yatha Brahmane Bhagavan Swayam Upadeshyan Nubhavitavan. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Swayam Bhagavan, taught Brahma and made him self-realized. Purport. The English maxim that God helps those who help themselves is also applicable in the transcendental realm. There are many instances in the revealed scriptures of personality of Godheads acting as the spiritual master from within. The personality of Godhead was the spiritual master who instructed Brahma, the original living being, in the cosmic creation. When Brahma was first created, he could not apply his creative energy to arrange the cosmic situation. At first, there was only sound vibrating the word tab, which indicates the acceptance of hardships for spiritual realization. One has to accept the hardships for spiritual realization. Refraining from sensual enjoyment, one should voluntarily accept all sorts of difficulties for spiritual realization. This is called tapasya. An enjoyer of these senses can never realize God, godliness, or the science of theistic knowledge. Thus, when Brahma, initiated by Shri Krishna by the sound vibration tapa, engaged himself in the acts of austerity, by the pleasure of Vishnu, he was able to visualize the transcendental world, Shri Vaikuntha, through transcendental realization. Modern science can communicate using material discoveries such as radio, television, and computers. But the science invoked by the austerities of Shri Brahma, the original father of mankind, was still more subtle. In time, material scientists may also know how we can communicate with the Vaikuntha world. Lord Brahma inquired about the potency of the Supreme Lord, and the personality of Godhead answered his inquiry in the following 6 consecutive statements. These instructions, which are reproduced from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, verses 31 to 36, are probably also considered Chatushloki of Srimad Bhagavatam, were imparted by the personality of Godhead acting as the supreme spiritual master. Jnanam param guhyam me yadjnanam samanvitam sarahasyam tadangam cha vihana gaditam maya. Please hear attentively what I shall speak to you, for transcendental knowledge about me is not only scientific but also full of mysteries. Purport. Transcendental knowledge of Sri Krishna is deeper than impersonal knowledge of Brahman, for it includes knowledge of not only his form and personality, but also everything else related to him. There is nothing in existence not related to Shri Krishna. In a sense, there is nothing but Shri Krishna, and yet nothing is Shri Krishna, save and except his primeval personality himself. This knowledge constitutes a complete transcendental science, and Vishnu wanted to give Brahmaji full knowledge about that science. The mystery of this knowledge culminates in personal attachment to the Lord, with the resulting effect of detachment from anything non Krishna. There are 9 alternative transcendental means of attaining this stage: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padsevanam, Vandanam, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Vandanam, Archanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, and Atmanivedanam. Shravanam, hearing, Kirtanam, chanting, Vishnu Smaranam, remembering, Padasevanam, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, Archanam, worshipping, Vandanam, praying, Dasyam, assisting, Sakhyam, fraternizing with the Lord, and Atmanivedanam, sacrificing everything for Him. These are different parts of the same devotional service, which is full of transcendental mystery. The Lord said to Brahma that since he was pleased with him, by his grace, the mystery was being revealed. यावान् अहं यथा भावो यद्रूपा गुणकर्मक तथैव तत्त्वविज्ञानम् अस्तु ते मत् अनुग्रहात्. Translation: By my causeless mercy, be enlightened in truth about my personality, manifestations, qualities, and pastimes. Purport: The transcendental personal forms of the Lord are a mystery, and the symptoms of these forms, which are absolutely different from anything made of mundane elements, are also mysterious. The innumerable forms of Lord, such as Shyam Sundar, Narayan, Ram, and Gaur Sundar, the colors of these forms, white, red, yellow, cloud like Shyam, and others. His qualities as the responsive personality of Godhead to pure devotees and as impersonal Brahman to dry speculators. His uncommon activities like lifting Govardhan, marrying more than 16,000 queens at Dwarka, and entering the Ras dance with the damsels of Raja, expanding himself in as many forms as there were damsels in the dance. These and innumerable other uncommon acts and attributes are all mysteries, one aspect of which is presented in the scientific knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, which is read and adored all over the world by all classes of scholars, with as many interpretations as there are empiric philosophers. The truth of these mysteries was revealed to Brahma by the descending process without the help of the ascending one. The Lord's mercy descends to a devotee like Brahma, and through Brahma to Narad, from Narad to Vyas, from Vyasdev to Shukdev, and so on in the bona fide chain of disciplic succession. We cannot discover the mysteries of Lord by our mundane endeavors. They are only revealed by His grace to the proper devotees. These mysteries are gradually disclosed to the various grades of devotees in proportion to the gradual development of their service attitude. In other words, impersonalists who depend upon the strength of their poor fund of knowledge and morbid speculative habits without submission and service in the forms of hearing, chanting, and other mentioned above cannot penetrate to the mysterious region of transcendence where the supreme truth is a transcendental person, free from all tinges of the material elements. Discovering the mystery of the Lord eliminates the impersonal feature realized by common spiritualists who are merely trying to enter the spiritual region from the mundane platform. Aham eva samevaagre nanyad yad sat asat param paschat aham yad etaccha yo aveshishya so asamyaham. Prior to the cosmic creation, only I exist and no phenomena exist, either gross, subtle, or primordial. After creation, only I exist in everything, and after annihilation, only I remain eternally. Purport: Aham means I. Therefore, the speaker who's saying Aham, I, must have his own personality. The Mayavadi philosophers interpret this word Aham as referring to the impersonal Brahman. The Mayavadis are very proud of their grammatical knowledge, but any person who has actual knowledge of grammar can understand that Aham means I and that I refers to a personality. Therefore, the personality of Godhead speaking to Brahma uses Aham while describing his own transcendental form. Aham has a specific meaning. It is not a vague term that can be whimsically interpreted. Aham, when spoken by Krishna, refers to the supreme personality of Godhead and nothing else. Before the creation and after its dissolution, only the supreme personality of Godhead and his associate exist. There is no existence of the material elements. This is confirmed in the Vedic literature. Vasudeva va idam agra asina brahma nacha shankara. The meaning of this mantra is that before creation there was no existence of Brahma or Shiva, for only Vishnu existed. Vishnu existed in his abode, the Vaikuntras. There are innumerable Vaikuntha planets in the spiritual sky, and on each of them Vishnu resides with his associates and his paraphernalia. It is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that although the creation is periodically dissolved, there is another abode which is never dissolved. The word creation refers to the material creation because in the spiritual world everything exists eternally and there is no creation or dissolution. The Lord indicates herein that before the material creation, He existed in fullness with all transcendental opulences, including all strength, all wealth, all beauty, all knowledge, all fame, and all renunciation. If one thinks of a king, he automatically thinks of his secretaries, ministers, military commanders, palaces, and so on. Since a king has such opulence, one can simply try to imagine the opulence or supreme personality of Godhead. When the Lord says aham, therefore, it is to be understood that he exists with full potency, including all opulences. The word yat refers to Brahman, the impersonal effulgence of the Lord. In the Brahma Samhita 5.40, it is said that Tad Brahma Nishkalam Anantam Ashesha Bhutam. The Brahman effulgence expands unlimitedly. Just as the sun is a localized planet with the sunshine expanding unlimitedly from the source, so the absolute truth is the supreme personality of Godhead with his effulgence of energy, Brahman, expanding unlimitedly. From that Brahman energy, the creation appears just as cloud appears in sunshine. From the cloud comes rain, from the rain comes vegetation, and from the vegetation come fruits and flowers, which are the basis of subsistence for many other forms of life. Similarly, the effulgent bodily luster of the Supreme Lord is the cause of creation of infinite universes. The Brahman effulgence is impersonal, but the cause of that energy is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. From him, in his abode, the Vaikuntras, this Brahma Jyoti emanates. He is never impersonal. Since impersonalists cannot understand the source of Brahman energy, they mistakenly choose to think this impersonal Brahman the ultimate or absolute goal. But as stated in the Upanishads, one has to penetrate the impersonal effulgence to see the face of the Supreme Lord. If one desires to reach the source of the sunshine, he has to travel through the sunshine to reach the sun and then meet the predominating deity there. The absolute truth is the Supreme Person Bhagwan, as Supreme Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam explains. Sat means effect, Asat means cause, and Param refers to the ultimate truth, which is transcendental to cause and effect. The cause of the creation is called the Mahat Tattva or total material energy, and its effect is the creation itself. But neither cause nor effect existed in the beginning. They emanated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as did the energy of time. This is stated in Vedanta Sutra Janmadhyasya. The source of birth of the cosmic manifestation or Mahat Tattva is the personality of Godhead. This is confirmed throughout Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita 10.8, Lord says, Aham Sarvasya Prabhava, I am the fountainhead of all emanations. The material cosmos, being temporary, is sometimes manifest and sometimes unmanifest, but its energy emanates from the Supreme Absolute Lord. Before the creation, there was neither cause nor effect, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead existed with his full opulence and energy. The word Paschad Aham indicate that Lord exists after the dissolution of the cosmic manifestation as well. When the material world is dissolved, the Lord still exists personally in the Vaikuntras. During the creation of the Lord also exists. During the creation, the Lord also exists as he is in the Vaikuntras, and he also exists as the supersoul within the material universes. This is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita 5.37. Goloka eva nivasati. Although he is perfectly and eternally present in the Golok Vrindavan in Vaikuntha, he nevertheless is all-pervading, Akhilatma Bhuta. The all-pervading feature of the Lord is called the Super Soul. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated, Aham Kritsnasya Jagata Prabhavaha. The cosmic manifestation is a display of energy of the Supreme Lord. The material elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, display the inferior energy of the Lord, and the living entities are his superior energy. Since the energy of the Lord is not different from him. In fact, everything that exists is Krishna in his impersonal feature. Sunshine, sunlight, and heat are not different from the sun, and yet simultaneously they are distinct energies of the sun. Similarly, the cosmic manifestation and the living entities are energies of the Lord, and they are considered to be simultaneously one with and different from him. The Lord therefore says, I am everything, because everything is his energy and is therefore not different from him. Yo va yo eva shishyeta so asmi aham indicates that the Lord is the balance that exists after the dissolution of the creation. The spiritual manifestation never vanishes. It belongs to the internal energy of the Supreme Lord and exists eternally. When the external manifestation is withdrawn, the spiritual activities in Goloka and the rest of the Vaikuntras continue unrestricted by material time. which has no existence in the spiritual world. Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, verse 6, it is said, Yad gatva na nivartante tad dhama paramam mama. The abode from which no one returns to this material world is the supreme abode of the Lord. Verse 54. Rite artham yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tad vidyadatmano mayam yatha bhaso yatha tamam. What appears to be truth without me is certainly my illusory energy, for nothing can exist without me. It is a reflection, it is like a reflection of a real light in the shadows. For in the light there are neither shadows nor reflections. Purport. In the previous verse, the absolute truth and its nature have been explained. One must also understand the relative truth to actually know the absolute. The relative truth, which is called Maya or material nature, is explained here. Maya has no independent existence. One who is less intelligent is captivated by the wonderful activities of Maya, but he does not understand that behind these activities is the direction of the Supreme Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 10, it is said, Maya adhyakshena prakrati suyate sa characharam. The material nature is working and producing moving and non-moving beings only by the supervision of Krishna. The real nature of Maya, the illusory existence of the material manifestation, is clearly explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. The absolute truth is substance, and the relative truth depends upon its relationship with the absolute for its existence. Maya means energy, and therefore the relative truth is explained to be the energy of the absolute truth. Since it is difficult to understand the distinction between the absolute and relative truths, an analogy can be given for clarification. The absolute truth can be compared to the sun, which is appreciated in terms of two relative truths, reflection and darkness. Darkness is the substance of Darkness is the absence of sunshine, and a reflection is a projection of sunlight into darkness. Neither darkness nor reflection has an independent existence. Darkness comes when the sunshine is blocked. For example, if one stands facing the sun, his back will be in darkness. Since darkness stands in the absence of the sun, it is therefore relative to the sun. The spiritual world is compared to the real sunshine, and the material world is compared to the dark regions where the sun is not visible. When the material manifestation appears very wonderful, this is due to a perverted reflection of the supreme sunshine, the absolute truth, as confirmed in Vedanta Sutra. Whatever one can see here has its substance in the absolute. As darkness is situated far away from the sun, so the material world is also far away from the spiritual world. The Vedic literature directs us not to be captivated by the dark regions, tamaha, but to try to reach the shining regions of the absolute, yogi dham. The spiritual world is brightly illuminated, but the material world is wrapped in darkness. In the material world, sunshine, moonshine, or different kinds of artificial light are required to dispel darkness, especially at night, for by nature the material world is dark. Therefore, the Supreme Lord has arranged for sunshine and moonshine. But in his abode, as described in Bhagavad Gita 15.6, there is no necessity for lighting by sunshine, moonshine, or electricity because everything is self-effulgent. That which is relative, temporary, and far away from absolute truth is called Maya or ignorance. This illusion is exhibited in two ways, as explained in Bhagavad Gita. The inferior illusion is inert matter, and the superior illusion is the living entity. The living entity are illusory, and they are called illusory in this context only because they are implicated in the illusory structures and activities of the material world. Actually, the living entities are not illusory, for they are parts of the superior energy of the Supreme Lord and do not have to be covered by Maya if they do not want to be so. The actions of living entities in the spiritual kingdom are not illusory, they are actual, eternal activities of liberated souls. ग्रंथराज श्री चैतन्य चैतामृत की जय।